Before the World Wars, there was the 7 Years' War, a conflict that spanned continents and oceans, truly the first global war. Skirmishes in North America could spark battles in Europe. Events in India could tip the balance of power thousands of miles away. British and French forces clashed in Pennsylvania, the Caribbean, and India, while massive armies marched across Germany and Silesia. This was not just a war of kings and generals, but of merchants, colonists, and indigenous peoples, all entangled in a web of alliances. The wealth of colonies fueled European armies. Victories in one theater shaped defeats in another. Nearly every major European power was drawn in, each seeking dominance, security, or revenge. The outcome would decide who controlled North America, who ruled Asian trade, and who held sway in Europe. The 7 Years' War was more than a series of battles. It was a turning point that set the stage for the British Empire and the decline of French colonial power. Prussia emerged as a formidable force, and the echoes of this conflict would shape generations to come. The world had truly shrunk, and the consequences of this war would be felt everywhere. Europe on the eve of war was a continent in flux, old certainties crumbling, new ideas rising. The Enlightenment spread notions of liberty and reason, challenging monarchs and tradition. Centralized states replaced feudalism, wielding professional armies and bureaucracies. Power now meant controlling trade, managing finances, and projecting military might. Diplomacy was a high-stakes game, with rulers seeking a delicate balance to prevent any one nation from dominating. Technological advances, flintlock muskets, mobile artillery, transformed warfare into a science of logistics and firepower. Armies grew larger, more disciplined, and more expensive, straining state finances. Overseas empires became central to national wealth, fueling fierce colonial rivalries, especially between Britain and France. The struggle for empire was no sideshow. It was the engine of European politics and the spark for global conflict. The stage was set for a war that would reshape the world. 4 great powers drove the coming storm, each with its own ambitions and fears. Britain, master of the seas, sought to expand its colonial empire and protect Hanover and Germany, relying on allies to tie down France in Europe. France, rival to Britain, was torn between defending its colonies and asserting dominance on the continent. Austria, under Maria Theresa, was obsessed with reclaiming Silesia from Prussia, a matter of honor and survival. Prussia, led by Frederick the Great, aimed to keep Silesia and secure its place among Europe's powers, surrounded by enemies. These ambitions collided, with alliances shifting and old rivalries upended. Britain and France fought for global supremacy, Austria and Prussia for survival and revenge. Each power gambled on war to achieve its goals, knowing the risks were existential. The fate of empires hung in the balance, and the world braced for conflict. The stage was set for a struggle that would redraw the map of the world. The first shots of the 7 Years' War rang out in North America's Ohio country, where British and French claims collided. Native American tribes, caught between empires, played both sides to protect their own interests. George Washington's ambush at Jumonville Glen ignited a global conflict. In India, the British and French East India Companies raised private armies, meddling in local politics and vying for control. The Black Hole of Calcutta incident inflamed tensions, prompting British retaliation and setting the stage for war in Bengal. These colonial flashpoints were not isolated. They were the sparks that set the world ablaze. The struggle for land and trade and distant frontiers would soon draw Europe into total war. The global tinderbox was lit, and there was no turning back. As colonial tensions flared, Europe's diplomatic order was upended. Austria, desperate to reclaim Silesia, abandoned its old ally Britain and reached out to its ancient enemy, France. France, fearing Prussia's rise, agreed, ending centuries of hostility with Austria. Prussia, now isolated, turned to Britain, which needed a continental ally to protect Hanover. The Convention of Westminster bound Britain and Prussia together, While France and Austria sealed their alliance with the Treaty of Versailles, Russia soon joined the anti-Prussian coalition, completing the diplomatic revolution. The old system was shattered. Europe was split into two hostile blocs. Britain and Prussia faced France, Austria, and Russia in a new, unpredictable balance of power. These shifting alliances made war inevitable and ensured it would be fought on a global scale. The world was now divided, and the countdown to conflict had begun. War erupted first in the Mediterranean as France seized the British island of Minorca, humiliating Britain and triggering open conflict. But the main theater was Germany, where Frederick the Great faced encirclement by Austria, France, and Russia. Refusing to wait for invasion, Frederick struck first, targeting neutral Saxony to gain a strategic foothold. His invasion was swift and ruthless, overwhelming Saxony and shocking Europe. The move violated international norms but gave Prussia control of vital resources and a base for attacking Austria. Frederick's gamble ensured the war would be long and brutal, not a quick campaign. The invasion galvanized his enemies, uniting them against Prussia. The 7 Years' War in Europe had begun in earnest, with no easy victories in sight. The point of no return had been crossed. The struggle for survival and supremacy was underway. Frederick, seeking a decisive blow, marched into Bohemia, only to collide with Austrian forces near Lobositz. Thick fog and rugged terrain turned the battle into chaos, with Prussian troops stumbling into well-prepared Austrian defenses. The fighting on the Lobosch Hill was fierce. Prussian discipline met Austrian tenacity in a brutal contest. Frederick underestimated his enemy, feeding more troops into the fray as confusion reigned. After hours of bloody struggle, the Prussians finally seized the hill, and a cavalry charge broke the Austrian center. Marshal Browne withdrew in good order, having inflicted heavy losses and saved his army. The Prussians held the field, but at a sobering cost. The battle was no easy victory. It shattered illusions of Prussian invincibility. Both sides learned hard lessons about the realities of modern war. The war in Europe had truly begun, and it would only grow more desperate. Lobositz revealed the new face of war, massive, disciplined armies enduring horrific losses without breaking. The cost was staggering. States strained their finances to maintain these forces, turning war into an economic as well as military struggle. Britain's financial might allowed it to subsidize Prussia, while focusing on colonial conquest. Military innovation accelerated. Frederick honed tactics like the oblique order, while Austrians improved their light infantry and artillery. War became a science of destruction, with generals seeking not just victory, but annihilation of enemy armies. The global scale and total approach made the 7 Years' War a precursor to modern conflicts. For Frederick, it was a fight for survival. For Britain and France, the fate of empires was at stake. Every battle was a gamble with existential consequences. The world was witnessing a new kind of war, one that would leave it forever changed. The stakes had never been higher. Lobositz was a harsh awakening. Frederick's hopes for a quick victory were dashed by Austrian resilience. The Prussians won the field, but failed to destroy their enemy or break the coalition. For Austria, the battle proved they could stand against Prussia, stiffening their resolve and that of their allies. The anti-Prussian coalition was now fully committed, and Frederick faced a multi-front war, isolated except for British subsidies. The conflict became a desperate struggle for survival, with Frederick forced to rely on brilliance and audacity. The skirmishes in America and India had merged with Europe's dynastic rivalries into a single, global conflagration. Lobositz was just the beginning, a prelude to years of fire and blood that would exhaust Europe and redraw the world. The illusions of a short war were gone, only hard battles and high stakes remained. The fate of empires would be decided on fields like Lobositz, in a war that changed everything. The path forward was one of transformation, setting the stage for the modern world.